Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Lydia with Lydia Pangborn Art, and today we're going to be painting something a little spooky for Halloween. It's called Widow in the Window. I'll go over the materials that you need to do the painting, as well as list those materials in the description box below. Also, I'll provide a photo of the finished painting on my Instagram account, Lydia Pangborn Art. So grab your paints, your brushes, and something to stay hydrated, and I'll meet you back at the easel. The materials I'm going to be using for this painting today are 11 by 14 inch stretched and primed canvas. This canvas was a white canvas and I actually painted a coat of black gesso on it. You certainly could use just regular paints, your acrylic paints, and put a coat on, let it dry, and then a second coat on. You can also buy canvases that are already black if you wanted to do that. And you can also change the size. This painting is very easy to change the size, and you'll see that as we go along. I'm going to be using acrylic paints, and the colors on my palette are Pyrrole Red, Ultramarine Blue, Mars Black, Titanium White, Unbleached Titanium White, and I am going to be using some gloss glazing medium today, which is optional. It's just to give me that nice window glass look as I work through the painting. And also, you can use any bright red that you have. I'm just using Pyrrole Red because it's a very bright red color. The brushes I'm going to be using are a 1/2 inch angled brush and a small round brush. This happens to be a number 2, but remember sizes vary depending on the company that's making them. You're going to want a jar of water for rinsing your brushes, a paper towel or an old cloth for drying your brushes, a mister bottle for keeping your paints damp as you work, something to draw with. I'm going to be using a piece of kids chalk myself. And today there are going to be a few extra items that you may want to have to help you along. I'm going to be using a ruler. Also today, as another option, is I'm going to be using some painter's tape. I actually have some that's 1 inch wide and another that's 2 inches wide. And if you are just using your ruler, you can certainly do your measurements with your ruler, and we'll talk about that as we go along. And you're also going to want to have maybe an extra paper towel or 2, or I'm actually using a wet wipe, a baby's wipe, to help me out today as well. But a paper towel will work just fine. And you'll see as we go what we're using that for. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some tape to help me create my window. So if you think about a window, the bottom sill is pretty thick, and then you've got the thinner sides for the top and the 2 sides. Okay, so option 1 for drawing your line is you can take your ruler, measure from the bottom up 2 inches on each side, so over here and over here, and then you can connect those 2 reference lines horizontally. Also, if you want to use your ruler, you can measure in 1 inch on each side and make your marks. You may want to do maybe 3 marks 1 inch in, so 1 here, 1 about the middle, and 1 closer to the bottom. And then you can connect that line and do the same on this side. And then up here, you can measure from the top about 1 inch in and make 3 little reference points and connect those. So that's your option if you don't have any tape that you want to use. But I'm going to make it a little easier. So I'm going to take my 2 inch wide piece of tape, and I am going to line it up at the bottom of my canvas. Press that down and just make sure it's level. And the other thing that you want to make sure of is that right where this little edge is here, that you just take your finger and you run it along the edge just to burnish it down. The burnishing helps so that you don't have a lot of paint seepage behind that piece of tape. And if you do, you can just take some of your black gesso, or if you use black paint, and straighten your lines up as you go if you need to. So I'm going to do the same with my 1 inch tape now on the sides and the top. Okay, so once you have your tape on, you're ready for your next step. So I'm going to use my 1/2 inch angled brush, and I want to go for this nice dusty window look, and the moonlight's going to be lighting up this really filmy looking glass. So here is where I'm going to also be using either my paper towel, so you want to have a paper towel nearby, or you can use one of those little wet wipes. So I'm going to come in with my 1/2 inch angled brush. I'm going to get some of my Unbleached Titanium White, and my brush is damp, and I'm going to grab some of my Gloss Glazing Medium. And I'm just going to come in and just start to work this color on, and then I'm going to take my paper towel or my wet wipe and just start to blend that out. So I'm creating this nice, thin, hazy, glossy look. Or if you don't have the gloss medium, you can certainly just use the paint as is, but just use a little bit of it. And the thing is, you want your gesso or your paint, the black color, to be completely dry. So that's important. So once I put a little bit up there, I'm just coming in and just taking that white. And I'm doing circular motions just to make it look like it's blending into the night here. I'll come down and get these other areas that may be a little blank. And you can work, I'm not working systematically here. I'm just getting this on. And if you feel like you need to have 2 layers of this, you can. And I'm gonna get a little bit more water on my brush and just sweep in some of these areas that look like maybe not much is up there. And then I'll come in, use my little white. So I'm gonna let this dry, and you can see like right here where there's spots that I may wanna go back in and put a little bit more of that in after this dries. And you can assess that on your painting as well, because sometimes when you start to wipe, you tend to sometimes wipe off too much, but we are going for that dirty glass look. So those can be fine too if they're there and you don't want to mess with them. You certainly can keep them there. Okay, so I'm going to rinse this brush out, and we're going to come back and we're going to put in the rest of the window. So you're going to need your ruler and your piece of chalk. So now that this is dry, I'm going to measure to find the center so that I can do a horizontal line here about midway, and then a vertical line here about midway to create 4 panes within my window. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to place it at the very top part of this bottom piece of tape, and it should be about 11 inches or so. And that's it, because we took, if this is the 14-inch side, we have 2 inches taken away here, so that would give us 12, and 1 more would give us 11. So we're going to find that halfway point, which is about 5.5 inches. And then we're going to do the same thing, come over here and find that mark up from that piece of tape, about 5.5 inches. And then we're going to connect those two. And we are going to make this piece a little thicker. So I'm going to come down maybe about 1/2 inch, and you can make it as thick as you want. And I'm going to make another line here just below that. And I'll probably make that even thicker as I go along with my brush. So if this is 11 inches, I'll have about 9 inches to find the center here. So I'm just gonna put my 9-inch here. It may overlap that tape just a little bit. So I'm gonna come here and make a mark at about 4.5 inches. And come down here. I'm just lining my 9-inch up over here with this, so it overlaps that tape just a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to connect these two. So that gives me an idea where my little thicker piece of my window is going to be, and then the thinner piece of wood that's there. And we can definitely adjust it with the paint as we're painting. So I'm going to put my ruler away. We're done with it. We're done with the piece of chalk for now. And you're going to need to have your angled brush again for the next step. So once we get those lines drawn, we're going to pick up our angled brush and we're going to get it a little bit wet and get the excess water off. And we're going to come into our Mars black paint. So I am going to go ahead and do this line first because it is going to be a little thicker, and then we'll do the line that's on the vertical. So I'm just picking up some black paint in my brush. This is my Mars black. And I'm going to put my pinky down. And again, if you need to, you can use a ruler or you can even put a piece of tape down here if you would like to do that. I'm going to start here and I'm just going to put my pinky down and I'm going to start to follow that line across. Now do you have all of the brush just going right along here? So notice that I didn't stay straight on over there, but that's okay because I'm going to make this a little wider. So I'm going to come just below where I was, and I'm going to make another little line here. And I do have my hand just touching down lightly. So if you drew your line and you don't like it, it's a little thick. If you get your paint out of your angled brush, so make sure you get all your paint out, and you can go along and just straighten that up a little bit just by running it along either the bottom, or say it's not quite the way you like it on the top, get that paint off your brush. And you can certainly run that clean, damp brush along the top. Okay, and once you have this straight the way you like it, you can always use your small brush to come in and get it cleaned up a little later when we're working on the spider. But I'm going to go ahead and draw the line straight down here now, but I'm not going to pass through that wet paint. So if you want to let it dry, you can, but I'm going to go from below down, and then I'm actually going to flip my painting over to go that way. So I don't have to wait for the paint to dry. I can just go ahead and get those lines in. So again, I'm just getting some of this Mars black on my brush. And this time I'm not going to go as heavy on the pressure on the brush. I'm going to go maybe about to the halfway. So I'm still putting my point down. I've got my pinky on the canvas and I'm just going to place the brush down, slight pressure all the way down. And this is why I left the tape on first. And it's okay if it's not straight. We'll take our small brush and work on that in just a little bit. And then I'm going to flip my canvas. It just makes it easier on the easel if I flip it. And I'm going to do the same thing down this way. So now I've flipped my canvas back over, and don't worry if your lines aren't straight. Again, you can take a wet brush and straighten them out, or when we get to our small brush, we'll clean them up a little bit because we have to put highlights on them anyway. We're going to have to put our moon in and decide where we want that, over here, where we want the spider. So it's no big deal if your lines still aren't straight. Just let them dry and we'll come back and mess with those in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse off this angled brush, and we're going to need the piece of chalk next to sketch in our spider. I'm going to peel this tape off now. So now that we have our window started, because we still have some highlighting to do on the window, we need to decide where we want to put our moon and where we want to put our spider. So I'm going to have my moon in this quadrant, and I'm going to have my spider here, and my goal is to angle the spider in, and I want to decide what type of spider. I'm going to be doing a black widow spider, which black widows are pretty prevalent where I live, but you can certainly do whatever type of spider that you want to do, and you can exaggerate it, which is what I'm going to do as well. I'm not going for realism, I'm going for something that looks creepy. So I'm going to draw a little circle, and I want to angle him so he's a little bit more angled this way slightly. So I think I'm going to start at the bottom of him here, and he has a little extra little rounded piece at the bottom here, but let me just go ahead and make my circle. So I'm just going to draw the circle, and then this little extra part down here is where the little spinnerets are going to be, and of course it'll make more sense when we paint it. The hourglass shape will be kind of angled since I'm making him a little bit more angled. Here is that red hourglass there. And then, so this is the abdomen, which contains the little spinnerets, and that's where the little hourglass shape is. And then I'm going to have the angle of the upper body, which is with these spiders, their head and their chest are together. So I think it's called the cephalothorax, which is the thorax and the head all in one part. So I got a little angled line here. So I'm showing that I'm giving the impression that my spider is crawling at an angle. I'm going to make that just a little wider, and then it's almost like a triangle body. So I'm just getting the shapes in here, maybe just a little bit broader there. And then of course we'll get all the other little fangs and stuff in a little bit later. Now they have 8 legs, of course, and so I'm going to just put little guidelines. So I have a line, 4 on each side here, and all of them are coming off this upper part of the body. And I want this spider to appear as though it is coming toward me. So it's like the legs are facing in. So if I'm looking out the window, the legs are hanging there on a spider web and the legs are coming toward me. So when I start to draw the legs, I'm going to think of down, angled out, and up. So I want the first leg to start down because it's 3 little separate parts, and then angled out, and then up. So down, angled out, make that a little wider, down, out, and up. And then the other one can be down, out, and up, and they can even cross over, so it looks really creepy. Down, angled out, and up. And then down, out, and up. Maybe these are kind of reaching a little bit more over toward down, out, and up. And of course we can play with all of these as we're moving along, but it just gives me an idea of where I want to go. Out, up, down, out, up. And of course there's these little eyeballs and little fangs, some little things up here which we'll play around with a little bit. So it just gives me an idea of where I'm going. And then up here, I'm gonna have a small moon. So just a little idea of a moon up here. Okay, so this just gives us an idea of where we want things to go. We're definitely going to be adjusting as we paint, and the next step we're going to use our angled brush to start with, but then we will be switching to our small brush, so keep both of those nearby for the next step. So now I want to decide how I want my moon to look, how big I want it to be. I kind of went in and filled in a little bit more with that chalk line, and I've got my Unbleached Titanium White and my angled brush, and I'm just going to start to go in and just put the corner of my brush down. So I started with my brush this way, and I'm just going to put it down and just sweep around and continue to sweep around. And then I can turn it upside down, so turn it the other way, get the rest of that paint off the other side, and then I can just start to fill it in and make that circle a nice clean circle. Make it a little bigger there and a little bigger there. There we go. And we will be coming in with our small brush in just a little bit to do a little bit more to that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to bother rinsing my brush off. I'm just going to pull in some of my Mars Black into my brush. I'm just going to go ahead and just start getting my Black Widow's main body in. Same process. I'm just taking the point of the brush, putting it down, and just drawing that circle. And then, so once I go this way with it, if I've got paint left on the other side, I can actually flip it around and get the paint off the other side to complete that circle. Trying to make it so you can see it a little bit more. There you go. And then I can go back in and fill the body in. And down here, I want that little extra piece to show. So I'm just filling in that little body part down there. And then here, I'm just going to fill in my little triangle. And just connect those pieces there. Right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse this brush out and switch to my small round brush. So I'm going to come back up to my moon, and I'm going to pick up some of a little bit, I've got a little bit of my black. I don't want too much, and I'm going to mix it into my Unbleached Titanium White. And I'm just going to come in and just start to put that in. And here's where I can straighten up my little circles if I need to, of my moon. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit. I don't want to get too much of my black, but I'm going to bring a little bit more black in. And I'm just going to start to dot that into my moon. The moon's far away, but we know that it has like these little areas of crazy craters and things in it. So I'm just going to give the idea that there's some craters in the moon. And I can come back in if I need to, pick up a little bit more of that Unbleached Titanium White, and just work that in if I want to lighten up some of those areas. And just get it the way that you might want it. Now that I have my small brush, I'm going to get that titanium white out of my brush. I'm just going to come up here to my Mars Black. Now, for my Mars Black this time, I'm going to add a little bit of my blue. So I know you're wondering why I have the blue here, but I want my spider not just to be a flat black. I want him to be, or her, I want my spider to have a little bit more of a hue, a little bit more character to it. So I just put a little blue in there. I'm just going to start to come back in and just refine my spider the way I want to now. And this way, with a small brush, I can just come in and just start to create the circle the way I want it. Maybe I want it to be a little fatter. It's a big spider, and then come up here and get this a little bit more refined. I'm going to widen his body just a little bit on the top there. There we go. And now what I want to do is I want to create the legs. So I'm going to start with the legs on the top. Remember, it's down, out, up. And they can be as creepy and exaggerated as you want them to be. But the thing that you need to do with your paint is make sure, now you can add a little bit of this gloss medium to it if you want to, or just add water to it. And I'm going to roll my brush in the paint. And I want my brush to come to a bit of a point here. I don't want too much paint on my brush, so if I need to wipe some off, I will. And let's do the two top legs. So I'm going to put my pinky finger down. I'm going to go down. And I want to stay more on the tip of the brush, out, and then up. I want them to be kind of long. So again, on this side, staying on the tip of the brush, coming back, rolling my brush into the paint. And I can pull out just to make sure I'm getting a little point on the brush. And it is down, trying to stay more on the tip of the brush so I don't flatten it too much. Out and up. Down, out, and up. I'll make that a little longer there. And if you get a little crazy with a leg, you can always take your clean angled brush and get it wet, just like we did up here with the window. And maybe I got a little crazy, I pushed too hard there. I'm gonna get some of that off. There we go. So each time I'm coming back and I'm reloading and I'm trying to stay right on the tip of that brush, so I'm coming straight in on it. and we get the highlights on it, you'll see where they're crossing over. They might not be crossing over, and then it won't matter because we'll have a lot of webs on it anyway. All right, so we'll let that dry. We'll look at it when it dries and see what we think about it. But while we have our brush here, our small brush, and even if there's a little blue in it, I'm gonna go ahead and work to straighten out my little window pane here. Get it a little straighter there, and then a little straighter here. And up here, and through there. And then while we have our small brush, I'm going to go ahead and mix just a tiny bit of black into that Unbleached Titanium White. And I'm going to start to add just a few highlights to the window along the top edges. And I'm just going to blend those out a little bit where some of the light from the moon may be hitting. And I can get a little bit more of my black if I need to, and just blend it back out in here. And the same thing on this side. Just getting a little bit of that light in the window. And then picking a little bit of my black up. I just got a little bit more black on my brush. And then a little bit more of the Unbleached Titanium White with the black on the edges here. And we're going to be hitting some whites in just a little bit, but I'm just taking this Unbleached Titanium White with that black and just hitting along the edges. So before we add any more detail, I'm going to let this dry, and once it dries, I'll get all the chalk marks off so we can come back in to finish up adding a little bit more highlight on the moon, finish the spider, and even do a little bit more to the window. So I'm going to rinse out both of my brushes, and when I come back, I'm going to need the chalk first, but then we're going to go back to our small round brush once we're done with the piece of chalk on the next step. So now we're going to start to add detail to our spider and finish up getting the window detailed. So I have my piece of chalk, and I'm going to draw in the little hourglass shape. So I know that the spider is slightly angled, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little slight angle up here of my hourglass shape. So I have two parallel lines there, and then I'm going to have a little dot in the middle, and then I'm just going to connect to make a little triangle, and then another little triangle here. And then down in here there's a little, I'm just going to put a little circle to remind myself to do the little spinneret, and then we'll start to put in little dots where the arms connect in to indicate the connections there, and then we'll get our little dots for eyes and then the fangs in, and we'll start to add some highlights to the window. So I have my small brush, and I'm going to pick up some red and a little bit of my blue, mostly red here. I want it to be a little bit of a purple, and I'm going to pick up a little bit now of my titanium white to put in there. And just continue to add red with some of that blue to make sure it stays fairly dark. I'm going to start to fill in my eyeglass shape now, so just filling that in. And that's really all we need to do right now for that. I'm going to get that red paint out of my brush. And I want to start to give my spider a little bit of a round look on the abdomen. So I'm going to take some of my white and some of my black. And I'm actually going to dip into a little bit of my blue. I just want just a drop of this blue. I'm gonna get a little bit more black. It's just more of a charcoal color. Some of that paint off my brush. And I'm gonna come around the outer edge here on the side and just start to tap in where the body may round a little bit. I'm gonna go back and pick up just some black now. So I'm coming back into my black. And I'm just going to put that, just make little small circles there just to blend that out a little more. And then I'm going to go down here with this color, this lighter color. I'm going to come in and pick up a little bit more of that white, coming down into this little gray color. Just going to pick up a little bit more of this, the plain titanium white. And I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to dot in a little circle area for my spinneret. So I'll take a little bit of my Mars black and just dot that around in there. So it gives the idea that there's something down there that's more of round. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to roll my brush up in my black a little more. And I'm going to come, so if this is the center of the body, the thorax of the spider, I'm going to come and put two little dots here for eyes. There's one, and then I know you probably can't see those very well, but we're going to put a little white on those to make them stand out a little more. And then I'm going to get a little bit more paint on my brush, and I'm going to make these little, almost like a parentheses on each side of the eye. So these are those little fangs there. And now we're going to start to develop the legs a little more. So I'm going to come back down into this lighter color, and I want it to be a bit more on the gray side. Get some of that white in there. I may even add a little bit of that gloss medium just for making ease to roll into my brush here. And again, I want to roll my brush in my paint to get it to a point. And I'm going to start to add some glow and define where the legs are coming in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put little dots. So just little circles wherever my legs touch the body of the spider. So there should be 4 on one side and then 4 on the other. And then at every bend in the spider's leg, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put where the joints are, there and there. So anywhere there's a bend, so remember we went down, angled out, and back up. So where they touch, those angles touch, I'm just putting a bit of this white, gray color. And then here, and here, and here, and here. And we're going to refine those with some highlights too. Here, and here, and then here, and there. All right, let's come a little bit more there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go even lighter. So I'm going to add a bit more of this white into this gray color. I'm going to make it even lighter gray. So I want this to be fairly light here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to put 2 little dots. So I'm going to go right in, straight in, 2 little dots where I made those eyes. And then I'm going to start to do a few more highlights with this color on the spider itself. So then I'm going to take this color and just start to hit some highlights on the legs a little more. And I may even dot some of this over those dots I just did. So there's that and that. So I did make some of these legs cross over the other ones, and so I'm making sure that I put highlights on those areas. Give that a little bit more of a point there. And they do have like some little tiny hairs on their body, but I'm not like necessarily putting those, but if I put little strokes here, some of that may, it may tell you that there's like some fuzz there. And so there's this leg here, here. So I'm gonna put a little highlight on this leg. And then there's the point to that one. And I'm gonna put it so it kind of crosses a little bit more in front of that one, so you can decide what legs you want to cross where. And this leg I made a little bit more straight. So there's that. And then this one crosses in front of those other legs. I'm just going to go ahead and take some of this where those little white spots are and just dot that in a little more. And then maybe just hit a little bit on the little fangs there. And then I'm going to take some of this on the outside of that little spinneret on one side. I'm just refining some of these areas. And I'm going to take some of this darker gray. So I'm taking some of the darker gray, and I'm just going to push that in a little bit to this middle section here. So we know where it, get a little bit more black. So I'm just picking up some black, and I'm going to work that in as well, just to blend that a little more so that stands out. Get a little bit more of that black. There we go. I don't want it too light. I'm just going to pick up a little bit more. I'm picking up a little bit more of my light gray, and I'm going to come around so that I know where the separation is of the lower body. Then I'll blend out some of that black around that as well. So it looks a little bit more round there. And then I'm going to take some of this light gray that I have, and I'm just going to start to hit it down on the windowsill down here, just on the, so if the side is there, I'm just going to scrape some across here and just blend that out. And I just put some water on my brush, and I'm blending all of that out. Just wanted to make sure we got the idea that some light was hitting down here on this windowsill a little more. And I have very little paint on my brush now. And I'm going to pick up a little more black and just come up in here and just blend that out. Looks like it has some, maybe some aging to it, some variation of color. I'm just going to pick up a little more water. Get quite a bit of that black on my brush, and just keep working that a little more. Here we go, just to blend that out. I'm coming into that medium gray color, and I'm just going to come around and just hit it over here just a little bit. Some of that moonlight might be hitting there. I'm going to finish doing the red part here. So I'm going to get this paint out of my brush, and I'm going to come directly into just my red. I only want red here, nothing else but the red. And I'm just going to go right over that color we put in. Now that we have the base coat there, we can start to make that stand out a little more. And then I'm going to dip directly down into this red with the tip of my brush. I think I'm going to go up here and just put a little dot for the eyeballs, just to make them look a little bit more intense. I'm going to hit a little bit of just some white around here, right over that gray a little more. Maybe I'm coming in down here just a little bit. Hit some on the tips of these little. We're not going to see so much of the spider's arms too much. We're going to have a spider web there. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the white now. And I'm going to do a little bit of this. I'm going to do mostly titanium white. And I'm putting a hint of that unbleached titanium white into that. I'm going to come around and just hit that on the outer edge of my moon here. Just a little bit, and bring that around, give it a little bit more of a glow up here on the outer edges only. And I'm just going to blend that around. Come back into that unbleached titanium white and just move that in there just to get that. So the unbleached titanium white with a little bit of black, and we'll just come back in and work that around and blend that out. And that's about all I'm going to do with that moon. And then I'm going to take some of this white mixture with that unbleached titanium white. I'm just going to start to hit little spots along the way here, just to brighten up, just on the top part of this one, and especially along on this side, so their eye comes down to the spider, and I'm going to come down with this bright color. And this is where, if you feel like you need to straighten that up a little bit more, you can. And we will have a little bit of that light hitting on this side a little more. And maybe a few spots along the base of the window. Okay, so I have the titanium white. I just pulled this titanium white over there. There's a little bit of black just in there, but it is mostly titanium white. And what I want to work to do is get this titanium white to be very inky, like the consistency is a little thin. And you can definitely use like a thin bodied paint if you want to do this, but I'm just going to pull some out. Now the Black Widows are known for their messy spider webs. So they don't have these beautiful spider webs that you might be used to seeing spiders do on your window. These are just, it's chaotic. And so that's what we're going to create, this chaotic web. And you can see how watery that is. So I'm going to roll my brush in it and pull it out. Roll my brush and pull it out. So I will be coming back in to get more paint on my brush as I go. I'm going to come right in here and think about where I want my webs to be. I'm going to concentrate my web around this quadrant and this quadrant, maybe a few small ones kind of around these other two, but I want everything to be concentrated at a diagonal here. And remember, he's facing us, so the web is going to be all around him. So some of the webbing is going to cross over the body of the spider itself, so don't be afraid to do that. So I'm going to start, let's just start easy. We'll start with this little leg here, coming straight up, light touch. And I'm just going to start to draw these little lines. If you happen to get thin and thick spaces on your web, that's okay, because that's what they do. All right, so that's how we're going to start. And now I'm going to have maybe something crossing here and maybe weaving its way here. And down this way. So we have something down in that quadrant. And each time I'm going back, I'm rolling my brush in the paint. And then I think what I'm going to do is have maybe some coming from, there's this tip of this leg on the second leg down this side and just crossing over, coming down this way. So I'm just gonna cross it over his body or her body in that way. And then we can start to spin some up this way. And then maybe something coming out of here. So you can go wherever you want with these. And I may even have maybe a few of them just kind of connecting to these other ones, just so it looks kind of frantic and wild. So you can continue to add as many webs as you want, or highlights that you need to add. I'm going to go ahead down here with my gray paint and just sign it. Thank you for being here and keeping me company today. I hope you had fun, created something special for yourself, and learned something along the way. Until next time, bye-bye.